Welcome to O's Across the Pond, the show covering all things Baltimore Orioles, but from a fresh European perspective. Join us for the highs, the lows, the heartbreaks, and everything in between. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just discovering Birdland, this is your home for passionate, across-the-pond Orioles talk. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of O's Across the Pond. Tonight, joining me from north of the border, Grant. How are we, mate?
Thomas, I'm well. Glad to get through another week of the Orioles not completely being out of it.
Yeah, it was kind of the best way to sum up this week. Opportunity lost?
I think so, yeah. I think given how the games went, I think we would have taken a series split in Tampa, given their form, but certainly we had the chances to win 3 games out of 4 comfortably. So we will recap those games and we'll have a brief look ahead to our second series against the Yankees, which starts Friday night in New York.
Yeah, hopefully the weather's not too hot in the Bronx because, again, Mantelino's comments about the heat. And I mean, I know, and we know what Tampa's like this time of year. And even playing at the time they were playing, it was extraordinary heat. But when they get back to Baltimore, I think Monday or Tuesday, it's going to be 92 to 100 degrees. Fahrenheit we talk in Celsius over here, but we'll go with Fahrenheit. It's going to be between 92 and 100, and we all know what the humidity is like in Charm City, so it's something that perplexes me, especially when spring training's in Florida. I know it's not as hot in the spring, but you'd think, come on, you're professional athletes.
Well,
that's
as we know, Thomas, we see all sorts of Americans feeling very comfortable with warm temperatures, and then they come over here and it's the middle of summer and it's much more humid than they're used to, and they can't cope with that being the mid-80s or late 20s as we would call it. So I think that's what happened in Florida, is the humidity has caused problems. So we'll maybe talk about that.
Game 1. I mean, I was down in London and that today, and I declined the opportunity to jump on the tube. It was only 1-2 stops, but I'd be interested to see how the Orioles would put up on a tube during the weather that we've had in the UK at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty warm here, but not to last. However, poor old Zach Eflin on Monday night down in Tampa. Orioles dropped game 1. Eflin has been up and down, but in this game, he gave up 12 hits, 2 walks, 7 runs before getting pulled after 5 innings, and it was very difficult to come back from that. He did seem absolutely dripping a sweat. I think he was struggling to grip the ball, given how wet everything was and the temperature. I mean, and that was that's 8 p.m, 9 p.m. at night by the time he's into his game, or close to 9 p.m. But obviously the heat and humidity is a factor, and you see everybody sweat dripping off him, even guys that aren't pitching, just standing in the outfield. So we talked about it beforehand. Tony Mancelino did mention that he knew that the Rays weren't taking batting practice in the afternoon. I think the plan was that they were going to take batting practice on day 1, and then they were going to stay indoors or stay out of the sun in the afternoon heat the rest of the week. So it is a factor. It is different from what they're used to. We'll see how the season unfolds, if it's a big advantage for the Rays to be playing there, and having teams maybe have to adjust to the conditions and what's happened there. We were fortunate enough to avoid any serious weather. There was a slight rain delay, but the series. 4 games got in, which is good. I think we will have at least another trip there at some point later in the season, but that'll be enough to either side to make up if there is a rain delay late in the year, because as we know, Florida, the afternoon thunderstorms are going to start coming in very soon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to think. Game 1, it wasn't the performance that we have seen from Eflin this season. I understand the struggles. The bats, as you say, very, very cold. At just 4 hits. That's not going to win you any baseball games, is it?
Well, not unless they're very close.
The combination of Zach Eflin starting and putting out that performance and the bats only getting 4 hits, it's a recipe for disaster. But with the 4-game series, you've always got you've always got the chance. And look, game 2,
Just point out, Zach Eflin's ERA is now up to 4.81 and a whip of 1.24, so that's walks and hits per innings pitched. So he's certainly letting people on every time he's out there, or most times. Given that he's our opening day starter, albeit he's had an injury issue, we need to see him knuckle down now and get through the games and give us chances, because we don't have the record that we can afford to drop too many of his starts going forward.
Yeah, it is something he needs to tighten up. Look, game 2, Dean Kramer, as you've written, Grant's an absolute gem from Dean Kramer.
Yeah. So he bounced back. He's had 2 bad outings really in the last week or so. So to come back, 5 innings of 1-run baseball. I mean, you take that every time from Dean Kramer. You take it from most starters, but certainly take it from Dean Kramer. Did give up 4 hits and 2 walks. Dealt with a bit of traffic, but no real hard hits. Got through everything. Got pulled after 5. Passed over to the pen. His ERA, incidentally, is now 4.80, almost identical to Zach Eflin, albeit he's played a lot more. Had a bad start to the season, but that just shows you Kramer. I think most people would have had him as our 5th starter this season in the spring, and Eflin maybe as the 1st or 2nd. So there's not a huge difference there. And I mean, there's plenty of people that would have liked to have seen us bring somebody in ahead of Dean Kramer, but he's there. He's not missed a lot of turns since he's been with us. Since he's come up, he's missed the odd few weeks here and there, but he's pretty robust. He does do his job, and we needed him on Tuesday night to give us a platform for the game.
Yeah, and looking at the bats, we've spoken about them a lot this year. Ramon Laureano, we had the poll out the other week about if the season ended now, do you take his option? I'm kind of in the bracket of could just get the options on now.
Well, I mean, I don't think I'll do that, but yeah, it's he's doing what we hoped he would do, albeit maybe still not getting the lefty pitching that we've been looking for, or hitting the lefty pitching. But 2 for 4, 2 RBIs on the night. His OPS after that game was up to 839, which you would take absolutely every day of the week off a kind of middle to bottom of the order hitter in the lineup. So he's doing his job. He's pretty good in the field as well. Can't complain at all about his contribution.
He's been outstanding in the field. Is he team leader in outfield assists?
You need to check that for me, but if you told me it, I wouldn't question it.
I am
don't
willing
know who would be
to
ahead of him, certainly.
Yeah. Whole game Mateo?
No, definitely not.
And Gunner, Jackson Holiday. These are obviously two bright stars.
Holiday has quietened down the last few weeks, so we certainly need to see him getting back on base, getting back to basics. There's certainly a lot more help now with Westberg and Kaiser back in the lineup every day. And Dylan Carlson had another good night. He went 3 for 4, came round to score 2 of the 5 runs. So we're getting contributions all down the order. Certainly the pressure has been off Holiday a wee bit with these guys coming back and coming into form. We'd like to see him getting a few more multi-hit nights, getting back to doing some damage again.
Just thinking out loud here.
Yeah.
Do you think there's scope for maybe rotating that?
Well,
lead off with Colton Cowser just purely for the fact.
So Cowser in the 3 games, games 2, 3, 4 of this series, Cowser had home runs in each one of them and knocked in a lot of runs. I don't know if that screams lead off to me. Possibly Westberg could be a lead off and you could change the order slightly, go righty, lefty, righty. But I think there is certainly scope to look at moving Cowser more into the meat of the order and not having him kind of bat down 6th, 7th. But we'll see how that develops because it's only a relatively short period that he's been hot. But he's looked pretty good since he came back. His overall numbers are still kind of looking down on the season, but he's had some big nights. He's had a lot of RBIs for us. So let's just check his at the end of the series. His batting, he's now up to 210, but his OPS is 801. So that just shows you the number of, multi base hits and home runs he's getting. If that average keeps going up, then his OPS I think will be over 900. Soon enough. He's got 6 home runs and he's only played 13 games. So that has been a big part of our success the last few weeks, getting him back and in form, because he's looked at like this for a period last season, but he did quieten down and then he had a kind of slow start the first few games in Toronto. But huge contributor this series for us.
Yeah, and look, we've had plenty of talking points this season, plenty of games where you're left scratching your head, wondering, there's no other way to put it, wondering what the fuck have I just witnessed. One game that comes to mind, and it'll be obviously a 25-2 defeat back in April to the Reds. Now, it wasn't as bad. Yeah, wasn't as bad as that, but game 3 is a low point.
Yeah, so game 3, we'd end up losing 12-8. Trevor Rogers back in the rotation, effectively taking Cade Povic's spot. But the big story, as we saw, was the top of the second. Orioles scored 8 runs. Cowser knocked in 3 of them with a big home run. Mullins got a solo homer right behind him. And then Laureano got a homer which knocked in Gunnar and Westy. Another 3 runs, 8-0. Should have been game over. I think vast majority of people would have expected that. I hesitate to think what the odds would have been. Let's see if I can find it here. I've got it in the summary without padding for too long. So at the top of the second, when the O's went, it doesn't tell me, but I mean, must have been 90-something% chance of winning the game, maybe more. At that point, you don't see a lot of games being dropped from that. I don't know what you think. I think Rogers kind of lost his focus. He'd started okay, got through the first easily enough, got through the second, must have sat for quite a while as 8 runs were scored.
I think he sat for about 30 minutes.
Must have been, yeah.
So, yeah, I think in that regard, kind of unlucky, but when your offense has just put 8 on the board, just go out and get out that next inning scoreless.
It's difficult because in one sense you think, well, my success is no longer win the game. That's been done in theory in your head. That's been done. So my success is trying to pitch as deep into this game. So maybe you start to throw more strikes. Maybe you start to take more risks than you might do if it had been a 1 or 2-0 game. But in the third, he gave up a walk, a single, then an RBI double. He did get an out at that point, and then he gave up another single, which let in 2 runs. It was 8-3 at that point. And I was quite surprised that Tony Mansolino pulled him purely because of the score. You know, I think you do play the scoreboard. If it had been a 0-0 game and we'd just gone 3-0 down, then
you pull him
closer, then maybe you do pull him and try and keep us in the game. But 8-3 up was still a lot of outs for the Rays to get, never mind for us to get. So, obviously we'd got rid of their starter Bradley early in the game as well at that point. So we were into their pen. So he pulled Rogers in the third and brought in Scott Bluette, who had been pretty liable. He was okay. Did give up a run in the fourth, but only went 1 2/3 for us, where probably would have been planning for him to go closer to 3 at that stage in the game, and with no off day this week. And then the big problem, we were still 8-4 up, big problem in the fifth. Yennier Cano, I mean, don't know what you think. It's becoming a big problem for us.
I have said this about Cano. I think last month, I think he had 5 or 6 bad consecutive appearances. I just think he's very easy to work out.
It's difficult to see where you would get him into a game, especially this weekend now, because he has been inconsistent. He started off the season really, really well, but he's got an ERA now after that game of 5.11, which for a reliever where you're only coming in max effort, getting 3 outs, is pretty poor. He's we just get his game logs, we'll see when his last kind of decent period was. So before game 3, 5, 6, he did have 6 scoreless outings, albeit we're not using them in those higher leverage spots that we would have wanted to be doing that at the start of the season. So it's not saying he's on the block, but we're getting to the stage where we start looking around, going, if we're not going to pitch him with a 2 or 3-0 lead, then do we look at somebody else and move on? But we're not there yet. But I'm sure it's a conversation that could develop if we keep having outings like that from him.
I think there is a conversation that needs to happen. I mean, look, the bullpen had been outstanding since May. I think the best bullpen, across the AL and NL. So, and this kind of implosion we hadn't seen for a while. So maybe we see what goes on over the course of this weekend and into next week. Maybe it was just one of them where.
It might come down to the humidity and the grip of the ball.
And the other thing that needs noting is the high scoring offense of the Rays before that series. So it's credentials that I'd be slightly concerned. If we were going up against a team like ourselves, who in previous months have struggled to score more than 5 a game. These have been phenomenal. In regards to putting runs on the board.
I think it's inevitable that we will see Cano over the weekend at some point in New York, but it just becomes a bit of a question. As it used to be very reliable, you could put him in, often in the 8th inning in a close game, but now he's more the kind of 6th, sixth inning guy, so it might be that we see him at that stage tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, Kittredge as well, and we just mentioned it. It's another, just another one. Like, it's just disappointing, and it's not a concern with the Kittredge. It's just purely, it was just a disappointment. We hadn't seen that from him.
The game was still 8-all at that point, so it was very much alive, and that's why we went to him, because he has been somebody that we would see as one of the more reliable relievers. Certainly up till Wednesday night it was, wasn't it? Up to Wednesday night, his ERA was 1.93, albeit he started the season late, so he's not played in a lot of games, but he'd been pretty reliable. He'd never given up more than one run at any point, and then one inning, 4 hits, 4 runs, 1 walk. Game over at that point. I think we all kind of had that sinking feeling that we'd had in April at that point. Big problem is we don't exactly have the kind of record that means we can afford dropping an 8-0 lead. You know, we need to win absolutely every game, and certainly every game that we score 8 runs in, we need to be winning, or the season is going to peter out for us.
Yeah, I mean, but the joy of a 4-game series is, you know, only being 2-1 down, and what we need to do, we've said this, is we need to be winning weeks 4-2, and obviously with this being technically a 7-game week with the 3 games up against the Yankees, we've still got the opportunity to have a winning week. Look, game 4, it was vital that we came away from Tampa with the split. Grandad Charlie.
Well, we've been talking about him since we started this podcast.
I still don't know Mike Elias an apology, Grant. I did note the message that you sent the other day.
You get your email in. I mean, I do it slightly tongue in cheek, because the start of the season was so bad that
10 starts.
I mean, he's almost pitching just to stay alive, but he's keeping us alive at this stage. So Charlie Morton on game 4 Thursday night went 6 innings, 6 hits, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, left the game as a pitch of record. We got all the runs just before his 6th inning. Got a quality start. He is now 4-0 in his record since returning to rotation on the 26th of May. Only blemish being a bad start against the Athletics, where we still managed to win that game. So we've not lost a Charlie Morton start since his return to rotation. Mm-hmm. And once again, the offense was all done with the bat of Colton Cowser. He got a 3-run homer in the 6th, put us 4-1 up the game. Cowser went 2 for 4 on the night. Big series for him with the bat. 4 hits, but 7 RBIs in those last 3 games, which pretty much put us over the top. We would not have split the series if it wasn't for him, I'm sure. We did see a bit of stressful innings from the bullpen. Dominguez and Soto came in. Both walked and gave up a hit. Both gave up a hit and walked somebody, but managed to get through those innings without any runs coming across. Brian Baker, who has been excellent, possibly the surprise of the season for us.
Yeah.
Felix Bautista locked down the win. We'll just have a quick. I think Baker's ERA is now down to 1 point something, possibly. Let's see.
He's in the 90. I seen a tweet about him the other day saying he's in the 97th percentile of
2.41 ERA. Came in, got the job done, passed over to Felix in the 9th. As we've asked this before, where would we be without Tomoyuki Sagano? Where would we be without Brian Baker this season? A lot of people would have quite happily had him not make the roster on opening day, but he's now pitched in 36 games, which I would imagine is more than anybody on the team.
Yeah, Brian Baker has played himself into a great position within our organisation but he has played himself into a position where he is going to be a wanted man come the deadline. Without a shadow of a doubt, if anybody is wanting to put a run together and, looking at that postseason, then the way Brian Baker is playing. And also, we had this conversation with Ryan Ripken earlier. That episode will be out on Monday. I asked him about Charlie Morton and if he carries on the way he's going with the form he's shown, discounting his disastrous 10 starts. And the question was, is Morton going to be around after the deadline if someone comes? Is he going to be wanted by a team that's making a run? And it was a unanimous yes. So
what would be interesting is Brian Baker's contract situation, because I would assume that we would still have him under control at least next year. So that would certainly change the dynamic if we were going to move him on. I mean, Baker would still be under team control through 2028. I know we've not really been talking about that seriously because he has been very inconsistent, and I think he's had maybe some injury niggles. But he looks to have sorted out certainly his mindset as well. I think he was maybe just coming in and looked to have the stuff, and then it fell apart. This season so far is not. But 3 years of team control, I don't know if he would be moved on. I think Elias is quite likes the idea of him because he certainly kept him.
I get that. I do get it, and obviously the team control thing comes up an awful lot, and it does lead to it does tend to lead to a more of a validated opinion on it. Just the way he's pitching. If you're looking and you think he's going to benefit anybody in a running and in October.
We're getting very pessimistic because obviously we're still hoping that we keep these weeks going. 4-2, 5-2 maybe this week if we sweep the Yankees. Unlikely, but you never know. But, we don't need to do that. I mean, if we win one game in New York, we're still alive. But the problem I've got is we can't afford a bad week. We've got to keep winning, at least 3-4 games a week to stay in it, and then hopefully.
No, definitely.
So we managed to survive the Tampa Heat. I don't know when we're back there, but I can't imagine it'll be much better at that point later in the year.
No, I mean even when Tampa come to Baltimore next week,
weekend.
It's going to be 100 degrees, do you reckon? So look, before we move on to the Yankees series, obviously I mentioned before earlier on today, Ryan Ripken joined the show. That episode is going to be out on Monday. That was good. Spoke about his minor league career with the Nationals and then the Orioles organisation, his journey into broadcasting, and then we did do a bit of a dive on the O's this season. And then earlier in the week, me and you were joined by Stephen Heckman from the Final Strike Pod.
Yep.
What's coming out of that conversation with Stephen? What were your views on some of the potential ideas around trades? I like the idea of going out at the deadline, regardless of the position. Going out at the deadline and grabbing a pitcher who is hitting free agency in the off season, getting him in and getting him signed to an extension.
Well, I don't. The problem I've got with that is you're not in control of it. Most people, they get to this stage, let's say they get to the first week in August and they've just been traded somewhere. They're looking at having 10 starts before they hit free agency. So I think most people, and remember these are professional athletes, so they do have a bit of belief in themselves. That you always forget that they believe in themselves a lot more than the average person would believe in themselves, and they believe in themselves possibly more than other baseball people would believe in, because you need to be really, really good. You need to have some kind of mindset to make it to major leagues. I know there's flawed people in there, but most people that make it have got something, an X factor. So I don't think you can have that conversation. Say, yes, it's a nice idea. We've talked about Eflin, we've talked about Sagano, who would both be additions or positive contributors next season, I'm sure, with us. We've not. I mean, we obviously just signed Sagano. February, only offered him a 1 year deal. We knew. I think going to Eflin and Rogers, who were the two pickups at the deadline last year. If I was making predictions, I would say that is where we would want to be again, or where Elias would want to be again. I.e., that if we do trade for a pitcher, that it's somebody under team control next year. I think if we were going to extend Eflin, if we were going to offer Sagano a longer deal, we would have done both those things by now. And the same is true for Endy. If we do bring somebody in that's a rental, very, very likely that they are going to take, unless they know that they've got a dodgy knee or a dodgy elbow that that they're fighting through, very, very likely that they are going to just take the risk and back themselves for the last few weeks of the season, and then have a much bigger choice of where to go. So, and the other thing he mentioned was trading Ryan Mountcastle. Again, I know I've said this on here before. I don't imagine that we're trading MD that's under team control next season. Yes, Mountcastle has had a poor season, but that makes it even less likely that he's going to be traded, because who's going to pick him up? He's injured.
He's out till September.
Season. Yeah, so even if he got back for the last few weeks, who's going to take a risk on him, even in the off season? I get that. Spring training maybe, and he's fit, and somebody needs a first baseman. Yes, but at that point, the roster.
I get it. I do get that argument again. I mean the truth, and I understand but I hate them two words, team control. Look, for me, Ryan Mountcastle, I just think he's not the same player since the vertigo issues. I think the
left field wall messed about with that.
I think
detriment.
I just think with you've got Kobe Mayo who can play there, but could he be used as a trade piece? I don't know. But you've got Kobe Mayo and Samuel Basayo who can play first base. So, now, I think with Basayo, more likely that he's going to probably come up September, maybe the end of August, predominantly. Whether he's going to be, they will try and get him in as a catcher. I think maybe once a week, but that's hard with Adley and Sanchez. But I think going into next season, Basayo is probably going to be catcher designated with Adley.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
But I would move. I think it's move on from Ryan Mountcastle now.
Well,
Time.
The other dynamic that you don't want to hear is that we're not going to extend Ryan O'Hearn. We're probably not going to sign Ryan O'Hearn as much as we both would like to. So we will start next season, I believe, with unless something happens that conversation develops and nobody offers more money to O'Hearn, even if we make O'Hearn an offer other than a qualifying offer. We know it's very unlikely that we sign these guys and we get them back. It's not happened so far under the Elias regime. We're certainly not going to overpay for Ryan O'Hearn as much as we like him, and he's been a very good, and he probably will continue to be a good contributor. So we will start next season, I believe, with Ryan Mountcastle, and I think Basalu will be a kind of platoon first baseman, deputising catching for Adley. That's what I think. I don't think that's an ideal situation. I think an ideal world they would have Basalu come up and play one position, but that is going to be how he gets into games with the roster that we've got. I do think there is a scenario where Mountcastle does turn himself around and does become a better contributor, but he's got to do that, and unfortunately he's not going to get much of a chance to do that this season. I'm not saying it's a question if Basallo makes open day roster. I think he's available to do that. It's just how quickly he adjusts to life in the major leagues and how
And this is one thing
still
that
have him on the roster. You can still have him on the roster as a backup catcher, and he can still play 2 games a week and learn if he's not hitting. I don't think that'll be an issue for him, but he is still only going to be 21 on opening day next year. But he seems to be doing it, and
a lot of people.
I don't think he's not going to get to the end of the season and be worth keeping in AAA unless his defence is the question that maybe they would want to work on.
Without a shadow of a doubt, and this is something that we discussed with Ryan before Samuel Basallo came up, without a shadow of a doubt, Samuel Basallo is playing in the big leagues come September. Without a shadow of a doubt, Samuel Basallo makes the opening day roster. And from what people have said about him, Ryan was just waxing lyrically about him. The issue that we have and that we have seen, these young stars that come up with, we know they can do it. Sometimes it doesn't translate straight away. Exhibit A, Jackson Holiday. Exhibit B, Heston Kjerstad.
And that's why, regardless of our status as either a competitive, trying to make the playoffs club or a styling up club, we still want to get a decent look at Basallo before the end of the season. If that's at the expense of Gary Sanchez, so be it. Not a nice thing to do, but if we need to have the conversation with him, then he's getting paid. That's part of the game of professional baseball, and get Basallo in there and playing as much as we can see him and see if he can learn, make the step up, because it is a big step up. And, you're not going to get major league pitching in AAA. It's a bigger gap than it's ever been.
Undoubtedly, however, there comes a point where you turn around and go, again, we see it with Heston Kjerstad, but there comes a point with Samuel Basallo where you go, this kid is now just out hitting AAA. He's playing him, instead of somebody playing himself out of contention, he is playing himself into contention, and there is going to have to be a conversation. Just a random one. May sound stupid, I don't care whether it does, is do you move Gary Sanchez on at the deadline to bring Basallo up?
We don't do that unless we're out of it. If we're selling, we're selling.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to take Sanchez, then fine. I don't think we do that. Question marks over the games that he's caught and our record in them. We'll maybe keep an eye on that. Whether that's just a small sample size and it's unlucky, or whether it is a factor that he's not calling a good game or he's not helping the pitchers the way he should be. We don't know enough about catching to really say if that's something that's a real thing or just a statistical anomaly. So yeah, I think we only move those guys on, any of the kind of what you would call the veterans on, if we're out of it or we've decided we're out of it. So we'll need to see that. That's a known unknown over the next, only now 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, it's coming up quick. And with that, we move on to another AL East rival.
Well,
the AL East has been full of...
What I'm trying to look up here...
Go on.
While we were on talking about Basallo, I was just looking up the Norfolk stats, because there's another name that we have mentioned, which is Dylan Beavers, who had another good week. Dylan Beavers is now hitting 314 average, 885 OPS. He's not quite up at the OPS of Basallo, but his average is certainly well up there. He's a corner outfielder. He's played most games for Norfolk. He is going to be a factor, and possibly in the September call-ups, although you don't necessarily want to call up 2 position players at that stage. But if there is a sell-off by the Orioles, he is somebody we would want to have a look at this season, as a candidate for basically taking Cedric Mullins' spot on the roster, not to play centre field, but to play outfield every day or most days.
Yeah, I think Dylan
put himself
Beavers
very much in the picture.
Yeah, I think Dylan Beavers is different to besides. I mean, I know he's hitting extremely well down at AAA, but from obviously we've spoken to people on the pod about him. I think unless something drastic happens in the next 4 or 5 weeks, we are totally out of it and we are sellers. I would be very surprised if we see Dylan Beavers this year. I think he is more likely to have a great spring training, not make the opening day roster, but we will probably see him early on next season.
Well, I don't know, and I suppose that depends on the likes of Carlson and Laureano continuing to contribute and nobody getting injured. But to me, it looks like he would be the next man up. It looks like he would have jumped ahead of Heston Kjerstad in the kind of the outfielder stakes.
Yeah.
But you need to add him to 40 man. Yes, it's not an automatic decision. If we did need somebody in a pinch, it's possibly not going to be him, given that Kjerstad is on the 40 man. But it's something to keep an eye on.
But there is options. There is options there to make space on the 40 man. There is, regardless of what people say about him as a pinch runner and his versatility in the field, like Dylan Beavers or Jorge Mateo, you DFA Jorge Mateo, and
he's not fit to play, so yeah. Not an option at the moment.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've been fortunate with outfielders. Nobody Mullins tends to have any injuries. Hope I've not just jinxed Dylan Carlson there or Ramon Laureano.
Dylan Carlson's another one to have a conversation about probably next week in regards to if Tyler O'Neill ever returns.
I forgot about Tyler O'Neill. Christ.
I mean, we can discuss that. We can discuss that in the week. Tyler O'Neill. I mean, that's a whole different conversation to have.
I'll just mention Dylan Carlson because he was a first round draft pick and he's obviously been knocked about. He's found his way to ourselves. He has got 1 year arbitration 3 next year, so he is likely to still be available to us next year. The way he's playing, I don't think we're going to do anything but offer him another 1 year contract. So that does kind of block, a kind of Dylan Beavers move that they might have thought would be the move that happens this year, or Judd Fabian, but Beavers is the one that's in there. So it's something to keep an eye on. Usually, if people are good enough, the opportunity is there for them, whether it's through manufactured or through injury. If he keeps doing what he's doing, then he's going to get a fair shot at it at some point.
Yeah, I do just think it's going to be difficult for Dylan Beavers, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. So the AL East this week, obviously, the big news coming out of it. We discussed it with Stephen the other day. Devers obviously traded away from the Red Sox. Yeah. However, we go to the Bronx tonight against the Yankees in a 3-game series. The Yankees, who are 1-7 in the last 8, very nearly got back-to-back sweeps against them.
Yeah,
got to a point where we were thinking, will the Yankees ever score another run?
Unfortunately,
really quiet. And Anthony Volpe is a confusing one at the moment. It's just so. How are we? Yeah. So let's have a quick talk through the Yankees pitching matchups for us, Grant.
Yeah. So game 1 this evening is, you've probably seen this before you've listened to it, but is Zach Eflin v Clark Schmidt. I've deleted the wrong one. Tonight we have Sagano against Max Fried. Sorry, I deleted that and went back to game 2. So Sagano could do with a good outing. Things have not been quite as sharp as they had been previously. Last 2 games,
2-3 starts.
He's not pitched 5 innings. giving up 3 runs in each, not pitched into the 6th at all. So we would certainly need him to turn up. Hopefully the warm New York air is something that he's used to from Japan. And big issue for us is that he's up against Max Fried, who is that thing we keep talking about, a left-handed starting pitcher. And he's a bloody good one because he's only got 15 games. He's not missed a turn for the Yankees. He's been their ace by a long distance. 1.89 ERA, 0.95 whip. So he's barely letting one runner on per inning.
Yeah. On Max Fried as well, Colton Cowser, he's got a .889 slug and .484 OBA against the 4-seam fastball this year. His 3-run home run the other night was off a 4-seam fastball.
Right.
He's got to have a tough task against Max Fried tonight because Max Fried has a plus 14 run value on that pitch, the second in the MLB, and a .166 opponent batting average.
Well, that is even assuming that Cowser plays tonight, because we'll have Laureano and we'll have Carlson in there. So it's Cowser and Mullins.
It might be one where Cowser sits.
So you don't want to set a form guy, but if you're going to rest him, it might be tonight. So Fried has given up some runs in his last 2 outings, but he's still gone 7 in each of them against Kansas City and Boston. As I said, 1.89 ERA, very much the ace of the staff. So we would definitely need Sagano to pitch well, and we'll need to take our chances if we get them. We may well revert to a kind of grindy Orioles work the count. Let's try and get into the bullpen as soon as possible. Although Yankees not exactly got a dreadful bullpen, but you'd probably rather face them than face Max Fried. Game 2, Zach Eflin, Clark Schmidt. So that, on paper, should be a decent matchup for us, albeit Eflin has been up and down. Clark Schmidt, if everybody was fit for the Yankees, may not have made the rotation, but as it is, he's come back in, got himself back fit, he's in, and I'm just looking for the numbers, which should be here. He's pitching to a 3.16 ERA, a lot of strikeouts. He's certainly he's no gimme. He's done well. He's built himself he's come through the Yankees system. He built himself into a starter. He's taken his chance this season when injuries have allowed. So, again, fortunately, as a right-handed pitcher, so we'll see how we go. We definitely need Eflin to have a bounce back, because there's not too many scenarios for us where we managed to get back into playoff contention without him pitching well for us going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Game 3.
The crazy time of 11:35 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, when the weather in New York on Sunday afternoon is going to be 36 degrees, which it's 90 something anyway in Fahrenheit. Great podcast and listen to me change the temperature. It would be 96 degrees in the mid-afternoon sun in the Bronx. But anyway, that's what TV wants. They want to show a game at 11:30 on a Sunday morning. So we will certainly finish our Sunday things early and sit down early afternoon and watch it.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Good matchup for us. Dean Kramer against Will Warren. So Will Warren is certainly the kind of the depth piece of the Yankees rotation. He's if we were going to get to somebody and give ourselves a win, then it would be that one. He's got a 4.83 ERA, but he's not pitched that many games. Let's see, did he start the season for them? Did he come in late? He did start 15 games. So right-handed pitcher. He's one of these. 26 years old. He worked his way up. He's taking his chance at the moment. I think if they did get guys back, he maybe would be the one to sit out and get sent down. But given given what we saw from Kramer this week, if we can get that Kramer back, then that's certainly one we'll have a chance in on Sunday afternoon. And as we said, we can just about afford losing 2-1. We would definitely take a 2-1 win in the series, but we need to win a game at some point, at least to have some kind of not disastrous week. This was always pinned as a tricky week, going to Tampa, going to New York. The bats in New York were extremely cold, but they did get quite a few hits last night off the Angels on Thursday to win that game. So I suppose we would hope that that was a one-off, but it is the New York Yankees. They do score a lot of runs, so we'll need to hope. Hope that we get everything working, basically, because that's what we need.
Definitely. And is it a good time or a bad time to be playing the Yankees? A good time considering the 1-7 in the last 8, or a bad time that they've had that little bit of a run now and they've got that win? So I just don't know. It's definitely going to be tough going to a little league ballpark in the middle of the Bronx.
Well, we've got a very good record against the Yankees, and you say, is it a good time or a bad time? We played the Yankees early in the season when it was a very bad time for us to be playing Endy.
I forgot Kyle Gibson.
We managed to win that series 2-1. I think we lost the first game 19-3 or something, was it? And then
they scored four home runs in the first inning.
Yeah, 2 tight games that we won. So, I mean, we'll certainly take that again. The thing with the Yankees, obviously you see a lot of them. You see the games, they tend to have a competitive roster, but they do have this moment almost every season where they just go missing for a period of time. And Aaron Boone starts banging his desk in the press conferences. So hopefully we're in the middle of that. And last night was just an anomaly for them. We still need to have everything about it. Maybe them winning last night was good for us because it just focuses the mind a wee bit, and we don't think, we're going to play a team that's lost. Was it 8 in a row they would have lost at that point?
If they got beat by the Angels last night, it would have been 8 in a row.
8 in a row. So I mean, they still lead the AL East by quite a bit. And certainly we've helped them taking games off of Tampa this week. But yeah, we'll just need to turn up. We've certainly got some hot bats. Certainly Cowser is one. Laureano, Carlson. I think we'll probably see 3 of them tonight. Maybe Mullins is the one to sit. And we just need to get after the pitching tonight against Fried and try and find a way to just get a couple off him at least and get into the game.
Yeah. Quick start is what is required tonight, I think.
And we'll be able to record very early on Sunday then. We'll not be sitting up till late at night.
No, Sunday will probably be a 7:30 record.
Still be daylight.
Which would be nice. Considering now I'm back in work, the late nights have had to reduce drastically. So if we can get an early record and no late night edited and uploading, I'd be eternally grateful. No matter, we'll have a freak storm. It'll be a rain today. It'll start at midnight.
No. We better finish on a positive then, even though Simon's not been here for a few weeks to keep us on message. So what's your positive following the Rays series?
I haven't froze. I was just thinking.
Froze mentally.
Yeah, fucking brain fog. Positive.
Well, I'll go with.
You go. Give me a chance
I'll go with Colton Cowser because he's come back. He's had mixed success, but this series he's stamped his authority on it. He is hitting the ball for power. He's hopefully going to start moving up the order and knocking in even more runs for us. The offense, although temperamental, first game against Tampa, then come back with 3 decent games for us, and Kaiser's been the spark there. So if we can keep him in form, we can definitely come out of New York with a 2-1 win, because we've got enough guys getting on, getting hits, and a bit of power from the middle of the order.
So, my positive is, in general, my positivity towards the Orioles and playoff chances. You look at the wild card. I harp on about it an awful lot, but the AL is wide open. It's by far and away the poorest of the two leagues, in my opinion, and has been for a while. You look at, the Rangers. We've got the Rangers coming up. They're 2.5 games back of the wild card. The Angels, who we had just swept, they're 2 games back of the wild card. You've got the Royals, then the Twins, the Mariners, and then
you're saying
the
a
Guardians.
Lot of teams are going to a lot of teams to take results off of other teams. Then,
yeah, I just think it's wide open, and then obviously Boston, just the laughing stock of that front office at the moment. That Divas trade. They are 8-2 in the last 10. I'll give them that, but I think there's a lot more to come from the O's this year, and with the extra wildcard place, 6 games back of the wildcard now as we stand, 10 games back of 500. I just think again, everyone's it's that how far back we are. Don't just look at that chase and the AL and how wide open it is. I said it in midweek, the amount of games we still have left to play against AL East opponents.
Yeah,
it's not.
I think there's a couple of factors that give us chances. One is, as you say, there's all these teams involved that are realistically involved, and that suggests that there will be a kind of trend towards 500, because all those teams will kind of play each other at various points, and nobody's going to kind of get too far ahead. And the other thing is our fan graphs. We keep watching it. Fan graphs projections. We're still at 4.1, so we've not moved a lot, but we've not moved.
Fan graphs, no, fuck all.
No, I know, but it still gives you an indication of whether.
Yeah, I mean, you look at. Go on. Well, the Red Sox obviously 8-2 in the last 10.
Yeah, the Red
Cleveland
Sox have got hot, but they still lost a big bat, and at some point that will catch up with them. I think
it's going to come. It's going to come back and bite them on the arse big time. And I don't think the drama is over in Boston. I think Jarren Duran gets traded. I think Bregman opts out. I said, just going down these teams. Cleveland, the Guardians, the last 10, 4-6. The Mariners 5-5. The Twins, who had got hot, we helped them out an awful lot with that. 3-7 the last 10. The Royals 4-6 the last 10. So out of them teams that we've mentioned, only Boston, the Angels, Rangers, and us have got a winning record in the last 10.
Well, I mean, we need to keep that going, and that is the thing I keep saying is we don't have the luxury of having a bad week at some point. Unless we go and put a 12 or 15 game run together, and get ourselves properly up the table again, then we just need to keep ticking off these. Hopefully 5-2 week, but more likely a 4-3 week at best this week. But we'll see how we go. It's just tight, and the way the pitching has gone, the pitching is now as advertised, and that we'll have some good nights and some bad nights. So I just don't see how we put that 12 or 15 game streak together that we need. If we keep that last 10 at 6-4 for another couple of weeks, then we've shortened the season. But it's easier said than done.
I'm not looking at like we need a 12 win, 12, 15 wins. What I'm looking at is, can we have 2-3 weeks of, where it's 5-1 week. Try and look at it like that, like it's something that is more a realistic target.
No, but that's what I don't think it is realistic. I think the realistic thing is that the offense gets hot and just blows teams away for 2 weeks, and we do go 12 or 13 games. I think that's the more realistic way we're going to get back into it. The less realistic way is that we just keep going 4-2 every week, because at some point you're going to have a bad week. The way if you're losing 2 games a week, you're not much further away from losing 3 or 4, which is, as we've seen this week, was the case. So that's what I think that we need to do at some point. We've shown signs of the offense getting hot, and that we've scored a lot of runs against the Rays, albeit conceded a lot in some of the games. And the Rays are one of the best pitching teams, certainly starting pitching teams in baseball. So that does bode well.
And one of the best hitting in terms of runs scored.
Yeah. I mean, the Rays
they were phenomenal coming into the series.
The Rays are 41-34, even having split with us. They're plus 2.5 games of the wildcard race, so they're the first wildcard team. So it was not a bad result to split the series. It's just the problem is we need to back that up with a series win in New York, which on paper,
I think we'll do.
It's tough, but given how the Yankees have played this week, we can get after Fried tonight somehow, or at least get a couple of runs off him and get him out of the game. We'll get a chance, but we still need to pitch 9 innings of decent baseball at some point, which is a problem.
Yeah, it is. We're not back in Tampa until September.
Oh well, might be a bit cooler there, but maybe not.
No, so yeah, I think we take the series in New York. I'm not going to say we'll sweep the series because I've said that the last couple, but 2-1.
I'm quite positive. I'm not quite optimistic because I think the Little League dimensions suit us. Maybe not against Fried, but certainly the rest of the other 2 games, I would be positive that anything tonight is a bonus. So enjoy, and we'll see you on Sunday evening.
Yeah, I'll be watching tonight. Well, I don't know. Well, I'll try and watch.
Get up in the morning.
Not committed, Grant. Not committed.
Not committed enough. No.
Well, you're just not. You're clearly not just as stupid as me. But thank you very much, Grant.
Pleasure.
We've been O's Across the Pond. I've been Thomas. He's been Grant. We'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.
See ya.
That's it for this episode of O's Across the Pond, bringing Birdland to Europe one episode at a time. Be sure to subscribe, share and follow along as we keep the Orioles conversation going from this side of the Atlantic. Until next time, stay loud, stay proud and let's go O's!